Hello, my fellow extraordinary Americans. My name is Cosmos Dar, and this is Extraordinary America. What is Extraordinary America? Well, you see, America has always been about freedom, opportunity, and the pursuit of happiness. However, most Americans are not free when it comes to the financial front. Most Americans are suffering from financial slavery due to loss of jobs, stagnant wages, inflation, and debt. Wealth and income inequality is the norm now, and the middle class has all but disappeared. So Extraordinary America is about the abolition of financial slavery. It is about the financial freedom of the 99%. It is about the nation of immigrants and the descendant of immigrants restoring the extraordinary within themselves and setting themselves free. The path to financial freedom is through financial education. It is through becoming entrepreneurs and investors on the light side. In this podcast, I interview fellow Americans who fought against the odds. Many of them came from humble beginnings to see how they did it. It is my hope through these interviews that the extraordinary within you shall awaken and that you will abolish financial slavery from your life and realize the American dream. Once again, welcome to Extraordinary America. Welcome back to the show, my fellow extraordinary Americans. For today's guest, we have Kelly Glusovich. Kelly is the founder and lead designer of clothing and merchandise for the High Post label with its website officialhighpost.com, which was started in the Lower East Side of New York City in 1993. Born in Santa Monica, California, and raised in the New York City area, Kelly is an entrepreneur, a graphic designer, an expert barber with 35 years of experience, and an educator. He has owned and operated multiple barber locations, such as the High Post in New York from 1993 to 1995, as well as the High Life Lounge from 1996 to 2000, High Life Barbershop in Los Angeles from 2009 to present, the 11th and B Barbering in Glendale from 2016 to present, and the Playroom in downtown Los Angeles from 2019 to present. His clientele list that ranges from entertainment, fashion, and publishing industry talent and executives to everyday business professionals. He also exercises his passion for building and giving back to the community as a full-time public high school special education teacher. He teaches humanities, art, and barbering courses that he developed for high school age learners. His most recent endeavor is a creative flex space and gallery called CLLCTV.NYC, a partnership and a return to LES NYC, where the love of the business started for him. Kelly is an extraordinary American, and I'm glad to have him on the show. Kelly, are you there?
I'm here, Cosmos. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this podcast with me. I'm really honored to have you on the show. Um,
The honor is mine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Kelly, I know that you're like an entrepreneur. You've been a barber for about 35 years and you're a lead graphic designer and you're into clothing and merchandise. Can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got started?
Well, I'm a graphic designer by trade. That's what I studied at Pratt in Brooklyn many years ago. I'm a visual learner, and I didn't realize that until many years later. But that's why I see things the way I do and sort of um, do what I do in a graphic manner. So my studies at Pratt helped me be a better communicator, not just in the written word, of course, but with visuals.
So Kelly, what was like your overall vision and career when it came to like starting like the barbershop locations and then eventually the high post label?
Uh, the the brand came as an accident. I was really just putting a store together. I wanted to put together what I thought was the trifecta of flavor items or flavor things that a person my age was into. It was a shop that you could buy music, you could buy some T-shirts, and you could get a haircut. And those three things, that's a Friday, that's a Saturday night, you know. And if you're really growing, it's a Thursday night. You need those things before you go out. Um, uh, Starting that shop brought me many a contact and, you know, friends that I still have today. One such person approached me about putting together maybe something more organized in terms of a line or a collection. So I put three of these together in the form of line sheets, which is like a flat drawing indicating what the garment would look like. So, excuse me, I gave him three collections. One was called Official, one was called Big Time, and one was called Hustler. Um, they were Japanese buyers, and they decided to go with the Hustler name. This is like 93 at this point. And that was my entrance into understanding what a brand is, not just the name of a store or the name of a business, but a brand and what goes behind it in terms of marketing and all that you do with that brand being a cohesive sort of collection of moves and things to push that brand forward. And I ended up going back to High Post, which was the name of the store, kind of the umbrella concept for all that I did for clothing.
So Kelly, my question to you is like from when you're like the late teens to like the early 20s, right? Like what
Hmm.
was the motivating factor that made you start these barber locations as well as do this thing? Like what is that point where you're like, okay, I want to do this and I want to go about doing this? Like I know you mentioned it was an accident, but I'm really curious whether like you had plans for doing something else and then like life took a turn and that's how it ended up.
Yeah, life is a bunch of turns, especially in my case. Again, it was not a plan. I went to school for graphic design. I was um, on a block in the Lower East Side where I was becoming friendlier with the folks in that neighborhood. I ended up having my first child, my first three children there on that block, not necessarily on the block, but in that neighborhood. I met my who would become my wife there, and I had a harebrained idea of opening a business. Now, just because the spot was for rent, it looked attractive to me. I'm already employed as a graphic designer at this point, and I had an idea about maybe opening my own business, having no business background, having not really a clue what I would do. Again, I go back to what would be a saleable thing or group of things, and that's how I came up with the idea to do those three things in one shop. Um, and and the inspiration comes from when you're growing up in New York or LA. And I use those two cities, though they're very far from each other. The thread that runs through is they're big metropolitan situations where young men and women grow up looking at all the trappings, and you have to navigate these trappings and the city landscape and decide who you're going to be in that. Are you going to be a consumer or are you going to be a producer? I decided I wanted to produce some things, things that were in my lane of liking. So that's how I got there.
So Kelly, like first of all, like for most barbers, like they never end up like starting like a business, right? Like you're in the top 10% or 5% of barbers that are pretty successful in what you do. And on top of that, you're in California, you're in Los Angeles and New York, where the cost of living is really high. And like
Mhm.
with all the taxes and everything, it's really hard. It's even harder to start a business, but you pulled it off. How would you advise somebody like who is in your line of work to go about starting a business in those two cities, namely Los Angeles and the New York area?
Well, starting a business, many things have changed since I started business in 93. However, many things are the same in terms of your commitment to your vision, um, continuing forward, and even with the people you love and care for you, who can become naysayers to your idea. You're writing your own book, so my advice is to continue writing. And seeking too much advice can be dangerous because you know what you want it to look like and smell like and appear like, and that's your vision. You really have to just chase it down and spend time with yourself, sometimes quietly and in a lonely manner, putting this thing together. But if you frame it the right way, it becomes exciting. And when you see it start to take shape, it becomes, mind blowing. And then you have imposter syndrome.
So, like, I wanted to ask you elaborate more on the last thing you mentioned about the imposter syndrome. So, a lot of people, like, when they're on transitioning from, let's say, the 99% to the 1%, and they're going on their way to becoming successful in business, they have this thing in their head where they think that they're an imposter, like they have the old self and the new self,
Mhm.
and then they're struggling to transform to that new person.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you think they should go about doing that?
Well, imposter syndrome is something you just have to fight it, kind of ignore it. And for uh, people who, you know, become become afflicted by imposter syndrome, you have to believe that you belong there. You belong in the place you're at. You belong in that space. You've earned your way there. It doesn't feel like that when you're in your own mental vacuum, in a sense. And you can be in a room full of people, and it can still be very lonely. However, um, you know, give yourself some grace and tap yourself on the back, like you made it, at least to that first room. And there's many more rooms behind that one. And it just keeps on going. Success isn't necessarily that room you arrive in, but the intention and understanding that you want to get into the next room and the next room and the next room. And that's not chasing increments of money. It's more enjoying the journey of learning and building relationships.
So Kelly, like a lot of people would think that when you're starting a business, like money is the main motivating driving factor. But according to you, what do you think should be the main motivating factor that pushes people to do something? Because like in my experience, I realized that if you put money as the main motivating factor, then it's then when things get really hard and tough, then you're more likely to back out of something, you know. But what do you think about that?
I agree. If money is your measurement of achievement, or if you're measuring your success using money as the increment or the unit of measure, that's going to be problematic early, because you're going to have an ebb and flow. Things go up and down. Sometimes you're flush and sometimes you're not. Um, the advice I would give it to a barber or an entrepreneur, or anybody with a stake in something they're trying to achieve, is one, stick with it and be excellent. Those two words, that's really it in a nutshell. If you're excellent, the money comes. If
No,
that's your
total.
concentration, it's yeah, it's really just about being the best you can be. If you know you gave it your 100%, then this is how my mind works. If I gave it my 100%, during the day, then I deserve to, have some free time later that night, maybe. Maybe I can watch, indulge in a brainless show for a minute, taking a documentary. But I don't often give myself that reward if I don't feel I've earned it, which is a whole other possible problem in how I process. But we all have our mechanisms and methods, to our madness.
No, totally, Kelly. So, Kelly, what do you think, in your opinion, is the biggest lesson you learned during your 3 decades of like doing like the barbershop and also doing the clothing line and design?
I've learned so many lessons. Uh, I've learned a big lesson for me was I was very married to my first business, and when I closed it, I was devastated, And I had a friend ask me, "How does it feel to fail?" And
Wow.
uh, that question, right? That question hurt. I couldn't believe he was asking me that. I was totally injured. I had to tell him, like, I can't believe you asked me that. Like,
Right.
why would you ask me that? Like, I felt like, you know, it was still fresh to me. Like within the last few days, I had shut the gates to this business, and he quickly said, "Don't trip. You don't really, maybe you don't know that having faced adversity, you're in a better state to move forward than a lot of others. Folks who have never tasted adversity, they may have made millions of dollars, but when they do taste that piece of adversity, sometimes it makes them hop out of a window, So, uh, yeah, not to be daunted by when things go up and down. And um, feel like I've almost I feel like I've lost track of your question because I started reliving that moment, and it was, I don't know, this is 93. We're talking really 30 years ago. 30 years ago I opened the business. It was open for a mere 2 years. A lot happened in those 2 years, but I was totally just bummed out. And I couldn't go out to clubs anymore. I didn't go out. I felt I didn't deserve to go out. You don't want to go to the club and they say, "Hey, how things going?" You're like, I didn't feel I had anything to say. Like, life is good, or my family's good. That didn't seem good enough. I wanted to be able to talk about my business was doing well, but I was in between businesses.
No, Kelly, sometimes like, like I don't know if you believe in God or not, but like sometimes, like life like puts adversity in you. So like you have like a story. Like if you, let's say, went through success after success, then people cannot relate. But like now you actually have a story where you're like, okay, I failed, but then I pushed forward and I started all these businesses and then
Right.
I succeeded. And then people can see that and they're like, okay, like adversity is part of business. Because a lot of people they don't start their own business because they're afraid of failure, and that's a big thing that haunts them. So
Yes.
yeah, like the fact that you push through it and you survive that, and then you continue to do what you're doing, that's an amazing thing, and that's what makes an entrepreneur success. Like that's what creates entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and you have what I call dark hours and dark nights, dark days, sometimes dark weeks. And you have to power through those. And it's okay to access friends, do some different stuff. If you're creative and you feel like you've run dry, maybe it's time to go take a walk on the beach, or take a walk through the hood, or go get tacos with a friend you haven't seen in 3 months. Go do something different and feed your brain different food. I had a professor, a design professor at Pratt. Um, he urged me to walk a different way home from class each day. Whatever your A and B destination, your to and fro, walk that way differently from day to day, so that you can feed your brain different food. If you walk the same street, turn the same corner every day, like, that's not life. We can do better than that. Maybe take the long way around. Maybe stop and get ice cream, and go 2 blocks out of your way. These are the things that feed us, maybe consciously or subconsciously, but we have to give our brains different food. So it's wonderful to go to a museum, just take in different visuals, see different things, be around different people.
No, I mean, I agree with that, because a lot of people like they go through their entire life doing the same thing again and again.
Mhm.
And like, there's like a saying like after 25, there's like a quote I once read, like after 25, most people are going up to the age of 75 just living the life of a robot. They're doing the
Mhm.
same monotonous thing again and again. And I don't know if that's like considered living or not,
I
but
don't think
yeah.
so. I won't judge another person's journey, but I'm definitely well acquainted with, my mechanism is, I don't want to involve myself in it if it doesn't make me nervous, if it's not scary, if it's not daunting, then it's not even worth it. If it's low hanging fruit, I'm cool. Like, let somebody else do that. I want to do something that makes me nervous. I want to do something that makes me feel like, man, if I screw this up, I'm gonna look like a fool. So that definitely, I'm definitely afraid of playing myself in public, of doing, something embarrassing. But I think that's just, you know, that mechanism many of us have, that it can be viewed as stress by some, but it's really just that governor that has you white hot with, um, seeing your goal through. You know, and one thing about whatever your show is, if you're a painter, your show is when you put it up on the wall. If you're an architect, your show is, when they see that model, or they see that facade built, or they cut the ribbon. But you have to visualize it. You have to see it. You have to see it and believe in it. And there's going to be some things that go wrong in the process, way wrong. And don't let it throw you. You got to keep a straight face, because if your team sees that you're nervous, they're going to be nervous. They might dip on you if you look nervous, you know. I just did a fashion show, and I showed 13 pieces. 7 of those pieces didn't arrive in the city I was in until a few hours before the show. Was I nervous? I was absolutely nervous. I didn't do what I normally do, and I wasn't pacing. I wasn't hanging my head. In my mind, I just said, also in terms of what you mentioned, if the Lord doesn't want me to have the show, I'm not going to have it. Or maybe he wants me to have a short show. Maybe I'll do 6 pieces. However it's going to be what it's going to be. But for me to stress myself about it, I was just going to make myself sick, because I'm so good at stressing myself. Like, I can make myself physically ill because I invest that much in whatever I'm doing, whether it's stress or art or hair, like I do it too much. Like, I internalize it, it becomes a whole event for me. But I didn't do that. I just sort of stayed cool and hoped for the best, prayed for even better, and we got our stuff and we did a show. The public doesn't know what went wrong. The public doesn't know, that I had a button where the thread was hanging, or that something didn't come out the color I expected it to be. The public doesn't know that stuff. So you keep a straight face, and they're happy if you're happy.
Wow. Well, one of the things that I found really interesting, and like this is something that I want the audience to know, is that you said that you want to do things that make you nervous. Most people would not want to do things that make them nervous, but that's what makes a person successful in entrepreneurship. It's like that mindset, right?
Right.
Where I want to do this, and like I want to push through it, because if it's not daunting, then what's the point? So that's something that I found really interesting about what you said, you know?
Yeah. I've come to this realization some years ago. But the more biographies I read, the more stories I take in about people's trials and tribulations moving toward their goals. They all have the same thing in common. They all wanted to quit. They all felt like, maybe I should just pack this up, and they all had naysayers around them. They all had incredible difficulties bringing their idea to market, or finding funding, or that sort of thing. So, you know, it's just that steadfast, wake up the next morning after you got beat up the day before, and you say, I'm going to make it happen. And every morning you wake up with more positivity than negativity, you're going to have a better day. I, I don't, I'm not in the business of guaranteeing or promising too many things, but I can guarantee that, if you keep your mind in a positive level, and it's genuine, because you can fake your own positivity maybe for someone else to see you looking positive, but if you really believe, like, your own positivity, not much can stop you except
Kelly, that's awesome. Like, yeah, the it's in that mindset you just gave us about how to go through like adversity, and how, and like doing things that make you nervous. Like, that is exactly what it takes to be successful. Like, it's not just like in business, it's like in anything. Like, I know, like when it comes to like even like when it comes to dating, a guy has to do the approach, and like he has the risk of getting rejected, but he has to still do it even if it makes him feel nervous. And so
nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? It all boils down to that. If you're not willing to venture, you're not willing to gamble, to risk, then what are you going to achieve? I mean, you get what you put in. There's so many cliche phrases, Cosmos. My God, there's so many things that say the same thing. Um, yeah, it's just sticking with it. I started my first business a year before um, Supreme, right? So we started a business in the same neighborhood. I think we probably shared um, a customer base to a degree, right? This is again Lower East Side, downtown Manhattan. Supreme being a little further west, but I closed up a few years after. Just blighted, like cooked from the scene and all that can exhaust you. And I was just done. I couldn't do it anymore. So I took a break. And for not sticking with it, I could kick myself and say, you should have stuck with it, man. Like you could be doing what Supreme's doing. To go down that path of of thought is dangerous because no one knows what it would have been or could have been. But it's just interesting to look back. You got to smile and be like, yep, maybe I played myself on that one. I should have stuck with it. So that's also part of the the advice I give any young creative or designer or entrepreneur. Stick with it. Stick with it. Maybe you don't want to name the business after your name, because if it doesn't go well, that's your name. That could be all the way wrong for you. However, in most cases, just stick with it. Give it that good try before you call it quits.
So Kelly,
I'm sorry, not enough of us own. Too many of us work for somebody else and rent. You know, I'm going to assume because you're a shade brown like myself, as people of color, if we're not owning, we're just kind of victims of circumstance. We have to push forward and become a little more powerful in our own neighborhoods.
that's something, the last part what you said is actually pretty true. Like if you even if let's say you're brown or like you're black or something, if you have a business and you're seen as a person that has money, then it basically it's like the great equalizer. And at least that's what I noticed over like the years that I've been in America, you know?
Equalizer to a degree. You need some money and you need your intelligence. You also need some allies. No one of those things will get you out of trouble, because in essence, and I speak cryptically but figuratively, when they come for you, they're coming for you. So if you don't have your ducks in a row, you have a problem. Sometimes nice to just stay low.
Yeah. And so Kelly, well, I had a question. Like I know you mentioned about branding, right? Like if you had to give one tip of advice to the audience about how to brand something successfully, like what how would they go about doing that? Let's say they wanted to brand their business.
If you feel you have a good idea, a viable, you know, marketable idea, if you're a creative in terms of design and you have some hands and you can design your logo, you need to start creating your identity. Um, Nothing I can give somebody in the span of like 30 seconds to a minute would be useful. It would just be kind of confusing. My idea is move with your heart, move with some guts, and take a class or two. You know, take classes as often as you can. You don't have to go get a degree. Sometimes it's helpful to take a design class, maybe to help with how your stuff is going to look. Maybe it's a graphic thing that you're doing. Maybe it's something to do with fashion. Maybe it's something to do with film. If you don't know these formats and how to do this in a professional way, you don't want your product or your project to look lackluster or like a B team or C team situation. You want it to look professional. You want it to be tight. So whatever you have to do to make this thing look like it's real, then you have to do that. Times have changed. Not a lot of schlock and unplanned or haphazardly planned projects get to market. They're just not cool enough. They're not tight enough. People can smell it, but by the same token, they can also smell the hard work that went into it. And if there's something there, they'll help you develop it because they may be able to make some money on it too. But there's nothing wrong with educating yourself and getting training on those things that you're not good at. And make friends, talk to people. People are more gracious than you would think. They don't mind sharing and answering questions. And if they do, then they're assholes. Step off. But there's plenty of good people in the world.
No, totally, Kelly. So Kelly, if you had to go back to like the first year that you started a business, right? Like with all the knowledge and experience that you have right now, and you could go back in a time machine and you could talk to yourself like when you were in like your early 20s and you were starting a business and everything, what would you tell your younger you?
Probably three things. One, write everything down, record everything, like all the experiences, record them. Two is stick with it. And three is um, be be a good organizer, like organize your stuff, organize your paperwork, organize everything in your life. I don't care if it's your shirts, your underwear, or your your gas bill envelopes. Like, organize things. It pays to be that person. I didn't learn to be organized until much later. And I still don't feel I'm as organized as some other people. It's not the end all be all, but it certainly helps your life until you can hire somebody to be your business manager. You have to be your own business manager until you can afford that sort of thing. So if you're not organized, for instance, I'm going to do this podcast with you. Nearing, our time frame, and I said, well, let me check this out. Let me check my Zoom link, and that's being organized. Let me be ready prior to the situation. It wouldn't have been cool if I hadn't I'm letting you know I'm going to be a few minutes late as I'm coming from one meeting into this one. Being unorganized is not even having the presence of mind to let know, the host, that I'm going to be late, or I'm going to be a couple minutes late to the time we agreed on.
I appreciate that, by
Um,
the way.
but yeah, I mean, it's just professional courtesy. So many of those little things get overlooked, and those little things, not being organized, not being about details and professional courtesies, those things can keep you out of the room you're trying to get into. Folks don't realize it's some of your younger uh, viewers don't think that you're getting taken to dinner or lunch so that they can feed you and they're being nice. They're watching how you eat. They're watching how you order. They're watching who you say thank you to and whether or not you smile when you say that thank you. They want to see what kind of person you are and whether or not in the future you can represent their company. Maybe you don't belong with that team. Maybe you're too rough around the edges. So who you are at the table, they're checking for who you're going to be. At the boardroom table also.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that they're being tested while they're being taken to dinner and all of that, that they're being judged in that regards. But yeah, it's pretty true what you just said.
Yeah.
So Kelly, on a different note, right? So the American identity is about the pursuit of happiness, but these days a lot of Americans are going about go about pursuing the happiness in different ways, but they're not finding it. So from your perspective, how should Americans go about with the regards to the pursuit of happiness and realizing the American dream, whatever it is for them?
I think, I mean, I know what it is for me. And, love is what it is to that person in love. You can't tell a 12-year-old or 14-year-old, you're not in love. Like, you can't say that because for them, it's love. By the same token, um, what is the American dream for someone else? It really depends on how evolved your thinking is. My American dream is freedom. I think we all want freedom of time and finance. Not that you can just go, blow buckets of money and lay back and be fanned while they're feeding you grapes. I don't know if that's healthy. I want freedom of time so I can go out and do stuff. I want freedom of finance so I can build things that are, of my nonprofit situation. I want to help people. I want to provide experience and opportunity for folks the way some of that was provided for me. I want to hit some of those places where there's a void in that area, where there is not the opportunity that there should be. I've coached basketball at, Harriman House off of, Avenue A and 10th Street. It's boys club days, in Pitt Street on Houston. Like, they've closed these places. Like, what are kids going to do? If they don't have a place to go, they have to, they're left to their own devices and they'll find something to do. I was one of those kids. So um, the American dream is I think, pursuing, ambitions that are fulfilling to you, so that you can arrive at um, your degrees of freedom, and those freedoms increase or decrease with your choices. You can have a total decrease of freedom because you committed a crime and they take your freedom. but then you may try and gain an emotional and a mental freedom because you started reading in jail when you weren't doing that before. Then you come out with maybe a new ambition, you know. So, the American dream, I think, is so different for so many different people. And, what we're all sort of experiencing, if not, by way of the TV, then vicariously through family members. I mean, there's tragedy going on all over the planet, So this is not just an American dream just because it's here in this country. And I know, it's about extraordinary Americans in the frame, but it's a global deal, like where's the freedom? We may have some freedoms over here in this state or this country, but there's some folks across the water who are, suffering immensely. So I'm really about being humane, but that's not profitable and it's not popular, So I keep my mouth shut on social media these days.
No, I mean, Kelly, like freedom is that's actually one of the reasons I started Exploring America was I saw like a hypocrisy between the American identity of freedom, opportunity, and like the pursuit of happiness, and then the reality, right? Because you see that now with inflation and then a bunch of other things, like people are not having time and financial freedom. They're having these stagnant wages, and then there's inflation continuously going, and it's creating more poverty over the long run. And we're just free in all but name only. So the reason I started this podcast, it was like part of like the brand. Like I wanted to get the stories of people that fought against the odds to like do whatever they're doing, because maybe
Right.
this would give hope to somebody out there. But like business and entrepreneurship and investing, those are the more permanent measures where you can actually get freedom. But there's also financial education. For instance, knowing that your purchasing power, that the money is being inflated away, and then like if your wages are stagnant, and then the money keeps getting inflated, like you're getting poorer and poorer. Like it's like stuff like this
Yeah.
that contributes towards like whether are we going to be free in our actions, in our spirit, in our being, or is it just going to be in name only? You know?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of moving parts, and it's a whole truckload of variables, um, and finding, what is an individual's freedom. I feel my perception of freedom is different than even my children. You know, um, they have a. It's interesting as much as I push or pushed for hard work and all that sort of stuff. My kids have a different view of things. They're more committed to peace of mind and sanity and these things that I've arrived at in later years. My main deal was wanting to be a an effective provider and make sure I'm gainfully employed. If I'm chasing dreams, that's fine, but I need to be able to pay these bills. But at the risk of seeming less than academic or ambitious in certain avenues, um, I've watched not just my kids, but folks in their age group, and I'm talking late 20s, right? My oldest is 30, my youngest is 22, and I'm still learning from them. I think we can all learn from people and places and things all around us, but it's especially touching to watch my kids be as sensitive to what's going on in their and our world and act accordingly. For instance, my eldest daughter is really into plants and nature, and like I don't know where she got that. Like I'm a city kid, and she didn't necessarily spend time at anybody's summer camp, for any length of time. She's a city kid like all of us, and but she's found her way into what is peaceful, and that's her path for freedom. She's at peace when she's sitting in her garden and reading her Bible. So you got to smile at that. It's not my life, but it's hers, and I like to see it.
No, that put a smile in my face for sure. Like, yeah,
Yeah, right.
that, everybody wants to be at peace,
Yeah.
ultimately, right? Like the greatest gift one can have is having a peace of mind. That you can have all the
Absolutely.
success in the world, but if you're not mentally at peace, then what's the point?
Right.
But on Kelly, on another note, I wanted to ask you about your company, the High Post label and its website, officialhighpost.com. Can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about the premise of how it was started and what it does and all of that?
Sure. High post is it's a term from I want to say the 80s, you know. It's kind of uh I want to say I learned it as a New York street term meaning it's like a superlative, like um it can be negative or positive. High post means better than, you know. Oh, she thinks she's high post. You know, that's kind of a negative. Like oh, oh, that 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 um I can't even. I mean, it's this is a 40-year-old phrase, so I'm having a problem putting in context. But you know, it was enough of a vibe as a phrase for me to be like, I would want my store to be high post. Like that's what it is. Like you know, it's
Nice.
like your store being called the shit, but that didn't play as well as high post. You know, so that's the brand name. You know, because a lot of people ask me that. No, it's not the basketball position, though I played ball. Um, high post, low post. No. However, the play on words works. You know, the Lower East Side and New York spawned that vibe, you know. Yeah. So, I mean, you can find us on Instagram. You know, High Post is not spelled with a GH, it's just HIPOST. So on Instagram, High Post Images, one word, or we have another page that we just started, high post underscore showroom, which shows all of our items with better photography and full color. Because my personal page, really, the first slides are all black and white ish. That's the look I chose, trying to be a little unique, but being urged by people over the years to, in efforts to push the brand to some next levels, I had to separate the clothing from my personal page. I was, as far as I was concerned, I was ready to say whatever to you naysayers, and I'll have barbering and hair and clothing and some of my personal life stuff. And people were like, "Yo, stop it, stop it, yo, just do a regular page for the brand." Okay, fine, so I'll do that. Yeah, and there's that. And our website is officialhighpost.com. One day we'll get the domain for High Post. You know, I'll get it from somebody who wants to charge me too much money. But this is where we're at these days. I started before social media. I did brochures. I put ads in magazines, and I got more requests from people in jail than I did from people in the streets. And at the time, I was asking for $1. Send me $1, I'll send you a catalog. They sent me dollars. I was tripping. This is 93. I'm getting dollars from jail. I'm like, yo, how are they getting these dollars? You know? So they sent me $1. I sent them back a double-sided threefold brochure. They'd order some stuff. And to be honest, I'm sorry, y'all. A lot of that stuff never got sent because I was unorganized. I was unorganized. I must have gotten 600 people, you know, hitting me. I couldn't tell you one of those names. I didn't organize a database. This is 93. I don't know what I was doing. I didn't go to school for business. I'm a graphic designer, cutting hair, hanging out in them streets, and trying to come up with a viable concept because there were people right in front of me getting money, doing stuff that I won't say on screen. That's them. It's not me, but I'm saying, how can I get some of this money off of them? And that's what spawned the first store. I'm playing off
Nice.
their economy because it's built in, you know?
I mean, ultimately, like, like as a business person, like you have to be practical and it's like real world experience. Like
Right.
schools, they don't really, universities, they don't really teach you how to do actual business and entrepreneurship. They just give you like an MBA or whatever. But like real business, like you got to learn it in the streets or like you have to have like a mentor that can show you. Yeah. But Kelly, is there like any other project that you're doing right now that you'd want the audience to get a glimpse into?
I don't know if I can give you a glimpse, but I'm really working hard on um, finding the means, because it's out here in small doses, the means to take older used fabrics, scraps, and mill them into new yarns and things like that. It's not for the small company. It's not a excuse me, an inexpensive process. It's not cheap, and it's just hard for a smaller company. But ultimately, I want to be able to take your jacket and you can give it to me for points on a next purchase, or I can uh, you know, redesign it, or I can upcycle it for you. That's the intention, is to create a community of people who are like-minded and want to not necessarily donate, but contribute to what we're doing. So if I get, a bale of sweatshirts, then I can turn out a number of jackets. I want to take the no longer loved garments and do new ones, because to weave new fabrics and cut new fabrics, we're creating just more waste. So if we can take what we have and do something with it, then I think we're cutting down a lot of the problem. But that's not quite, the whole deal. But that'll be, my entrance into, this new thing, new to me. Sustainability is not new, but it's new to me in my practice. I'm coming out of, I was playing with fast fashion, and I was like, geez, this is terrible. I can have I can design a shirt and have it in my hands in like a week and a half. If I can do this, that means a lot of people, everybody can do this. And this is just, we just made the problem even worse. We can't just blame it on H&M and Zara, like we can do this from our little apps and just have, things that come out of the direct to garment press in a matter of days, and we could just have the stuff laying around and it's just wasted. Why do we keep doing this? I mean, uh, look back at African American history in this country, not just not exclusively to African Americans, but you look down south in places and you'll still find some quilts, and quilting became a thing for necessity and function. Nothing got wasted. Those scraps were turned into a quilt if they couldn't be repaired as the garment they were. And if the scraps didn't work anymore, they got put in between in the wall for insulation. Nothing got wasted, you know.
Mhm.
So we need more of that state of mind. That's who America was. Speaking of extraordinary Americans, when we were, more steadfast with a thing called beliefs instead of just opinions, Um, and we worked hard and we cared about each other to an extent, you know. I think we have more on the ball right now, but we're so scattered and being so many different types of people, instead of just kind of remembering we're all kind of human. Let's just band together and get some work done. I don't have all the answers, Cosmos.
No, Kelly, I appreciate your vision, and I hope like success in your endeavors, because yeah.
Thank you.
Uh, and so Kelly, how can our audience connect with you personally, and if they wanted to reach out and talk to you or something like that?
Well, my website has a blog on it, and we can certainly communicate that way. I encourage people to touch on the blog because it hasn't really gotten started. But I do want to offer this because I'm a little different in how I do things. And I want to give you a phone number because I can be reached. It's 917 589 9287. Again, 917, a wonderful New York area code, 589 9287. You can call that number. I might pick up, I might not, leave a message, I might call you back, I might text you. I don't know. But I'm trying to be a little more personal than how things are so incredibly impersonal. I want to go back to being personal, um, which is also why a lot of the garments I'm doing, which are more the ones I'm concentrating on for future, are one of ones. And that's personal, that's custom. It's like wearing art on your back. Um, so there's the phone number, there's the website. You can certainly Instagram, direct message me. I'll get back to you within half a day or so, unless it's a Sunday. I usually try and not touch my phone on Sunday except to listen to music while I'm riding the bike.
That's awesome, Kelly. Kelly, I'm really grateful that you took the time to do this show with us, and your wisdom and experience is invaluable. And I know that the audience has got a lot out of it, and I would like to have you on the show at a later time.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm honored to have hung out with you a little while. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
For sure. And I want to conclude this podcast by letting my fellow extraordinary Americans know that, hey, look, there's an extraordinary within each and every one of us. It's our duty to awaken it and unleash it. Until next time, bye for now. Hey there, everyone. Thank you for watching Extraordinary America. If you like what you see, please do subscribe to our podcast and share it with others. Remember that the best investment that you can make in your lifetime is in your own financial education, for it is knowledge that truly sets you free. Also remember that your purchasing power is being diluted through inflation, and then the practical thing to do is to protect the loss of your purchasing power by investing in precious metals or the right cryptocurrencies. Also, never forget that you are an extraordinary American. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.